Welcome to Eastown Online. My name is Emerald, and I'm really glad that you have chosen to watch us today. Our life work here at Eastown is for anyone to experience Jesus, belong in community, and love our neighbor. What does that mean for us? It means that we want you to know that Jesus wants to get to know you, who you are and where you're at in life right now. He wants to know you, and he wants you to know him. It means that we are encouraging our people to live life together in community to see all the ways that Jesus can show himself. And it means that we are committed to loving local. Loving local means that we want to show up with love and mercy and grace and justice wherever we go. If it is your first, second, or third time watching and you've never checked in with us, you can do that by texting Eastown to 94000. I want to encourage you to subscribe and share, and don't forget to comment. I want to hear what it is that you're learning as you are watching. I know for some of you, this right here is a first step into community. And so I want to thank you for taking that leap to join us. But I also want you to know it is so much better in the room. So today, I pray that in the meantime, you take in this moment, and I pray that this message pushes you to love God, love yourself, and love others better. Enjoy.
I love those words because that is our desire for you, is that this would be a place that you can come as honestly as you can, as honestly as you are, and that you would understand for all of us, there's some brokenness inside. There are battles that we are facing, and maybe we want to come in here and with a smile on and hug others and present that things are okay. But we just want you to know today that it's okay if it's not okay. And there are things all around us in this world that are damaging to our souls, to who we are, to who Jesus created us to be. And so that has been our desire through this Peace of Mind series, is that through Jesus, because of who he is, because of the fact that he sees, that he cares, and that he can hold all the weight of anything that you're carrying, that you would experience greater and greater freedom, whatever it is that you're carrying. And I have talked to some of you that you're in here and you're carrying a weight. Others of you, you're carrying a weight for someone that you love dearly. And whatever it is that you might be experiencing right now, today we want you to know that Jesus sees. My name is Michael Dupin. I am one of the lead pastors here at Eastown. If you are new today, I just want to say welcome. We're so glad that you're here. We would love to get a chance to meet you after. It's going to be a great day. But I want to move on pretty quickly because we have an incredible wrap up to our series today, and we have a panel, and I am super excited about who we have today, so I don't want to take any of their time. So I would go ahead and come up, invite our panelists up. But some of you have been sending in questions along the way with the series, questions that you might have about mental health. And then we've also curated some questions today based on the expertise of our panelists and based on the conversations that we're having with you. And so for today, to get us started, I would just love each person to take a moment and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do. Demetrius, do you want to start? Okay.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Demetrius Ball, and I have the honor of serving as the principal of California High School here in San Ramon. We've been in San Ramon, my family and I, for about 9 years in July. And it's just an honor to be able to serve our community and in the way that I do with young people and adults as well.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Danielle Hawthorne, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Worthy of Dignity. I'm an executive leadership coach. I'm a leadership development expert and a speaker. And I work with ambitious, high-achieving women and leaders who really want to go back to the foundation of rooting their identity in who they were uniquely and divinely created to be, rather than performance and productivity metrics that society tells us success equals. And so I work with them to root in their identity and to build lives where they can move forward with purpose and with power.
Love that. So cool. I'm Jill Weinberg. I work at the Community Presbyterian Counseling Center, which is literally across the parking lot here. I have been married for 31 years. I have 2 young adult children, and I get to work with a variety of clients. I work with primarily women of all ages dealing with anxiety, depression, life transitions, women seeking to understand their identity a little bit better. And then I have the privilege of working with a program that we just started recently called Wholehearted Families that seeks to help bring unity and restoration where there's been estrangement or parenting challenges, so it really supports families. I work with couples as well and teens.
Well, like I said, I'm super excited for you to hear from this group today. They have all had their own unique and profound impact on Eastown. Jill and her husband, Todd, helped us get started at the very beginning when we were probably crazy and I was crazy and I was like, what are we doing? Starting a church. And so they were a part of helping us at the very beginning. And then Danielle, is on our teaching team and has just been such an encouragement to me personally, to our family. She's mentored our daughter. And so just amazing. And then Demetrius, first of all, you're a friend to my husband, so thank you. I know that takes a lot. But in addition, I'm so thankful. I was telling our team earlier this morning that we were talking with, just my biggest regret is that he wasn't Cal High principal when our daughter Claire was there, but I love that Henry has you and sees your leadership there. We watch and we see and we're on that campus and we know the profound impact that you are having to that school, to our district, and then to individual students. We thank God for you every day. And Charlie's only 12, so you can't go anywhere until he graduates high school. So that's just my selfishness there. So, all right. So we're just going to ask some questions, and I just believe that I'm praying that your heart will be open, that there's something spoken today that you're like, that's why I'm here. That's what I needed to hear. And so I'm starting this first one with Danielle and Jill. You can choose who goes first. But as you meet with people, what are you noticing? No, I'm starting with all of you because I want to know about students too. As you meet with people, what are you noticing at the root cause of much of our mental health struggles? And then an additional, how do you see this connected to our identity in Christ? Danielle, you go.
Okay, you go first.
I'm just going to pick.
I think the biggest thing that I'm seeing is this desire to, the hustle and the grind is one of the biggest things I'm seeing. But I'm also seeing clients come in and folks that I work with, friends and even family members, really striving to achieve in their workplace, in their careers. And it's caused them to root and anchor their identity in their work, in their title, in leveling up, in that next promotion. And the problem with that is that when that job goes away, when that title is no longer there, they find themselves crashing because they don't know who they are. And so a lot of this work that I'm doing with people and a lot of what I'm seeing is folks looking for an anchor in their lives that they can build their identity on. And the work that I do with my clients is I remind them that they were fearfully and wonderfully made, that God created them for a purpose in this life, and that when we seek to identify ourselves in anything other than Christ, we will be disappointed. And so that's really what I'm seeing is this desire to perform and produce for acceptance, for approval, to meet a standard that we will never meet.
That's good. Jill.
So it was really fun getting to meet Danielle on a call that we did prior to today, and just hear her passion resonate so much with me. So I really appreciate what you've shared. I would echo that. I would say 2 things. One, what I find when I see clients typically is at the root of what they're coming in for, and I don't want to oversimplify because we all come in with trauma and stories of our own that are complex and unique to us as individuals. And at the root of what most of us are asking is, am I lovable and am I enough? Am I smart enough? Am I charming enough? Am I attractive enough? Am I successful enough? Am I enough? And to Danielle's point, when we are striving and chasing and not even realizing it half the time, I think we're not even really aware that we are seeking others' approval. I myself am a recovering people pleaser, so I get this completely, and not just professionally, but personally. And it leaves us so weary. And so what I have felt God encouraging me recently, and what has been helpful, I think, in a lot of the work I do, is just a small motivational shift. And it's really not that hard, and it can make such a big difference. When we shift our focus not to how can I be enough, but how can I make others enough? How can I bless and serve others? And really that just means, how can I add value to somebody else's life instead of just my own? There's something really freeing about that, when we can slow down and just not make it about us. How can I serve and bless others? And then just really briefly, I want to add that I think there's a psychiatrist, a Christian psychiatrist by the name of Kurt Thompson. He wrote Anatomy of the Soul and Soul of Desire and Soul of Shame, if you've heard of him. But he is a well-renowned speaker, author, and psychiatrist. And he shares that at the root of anxiety and depression in his work is a chronic state of not being deeply known. And I loved the song that we sang this morning. It just really touched me, if we're honest, right? If we can be married, we can live in community and still not be deeply known. And Jesus calls us to bear one another's burdens. And how can we bear one another's burdens if we don't know what they are? And we can't do that without being vulnerable. So what encourages me is just this recognition that we don't need to be perfect to be loved. In fact, we don't even really connect with perfection, but we do connect with real.
That's really good. Thanks, Jill. All right, Demetrius, give us a picture into students.
You know, honestly, I think our kids are paying attention to all the things that we're doing and the things that we're saying and the behaviors that we're acting out. And our kids are in search of who they are, and the world is telling them they need to find it, you know, in other people and other things. And I think it's important for us to just realize that, to understand that when they hear and see in our culture that, oh, I've got to get to this particular school in order to be successful, and I have to have this job, and I have to earn this amount of money, you know, all that stuff is fleeting. So I think just like Jill said, you know, and Danielle as well, like we have to find our purpose and why we're here. And, you know, one of the big things that I feel like I'm able to do is kind of, I do my best to model that for our kids. It's super easy to be anxious and all the things that you've addressed in this series when we're focused on all the stuff and the things and the achievement and what success looks like. But what's your impact on our community? Who are you serving? How are you loving? And we don't get that message from society. So I think the bottom line is, you know, us as parents, us as adults, you know, to the best of our ability, modeling, you know, what is important and who is important, so that, and all those other things will come. That success and stuff will come once we find out who we are and what we're put on this earth to do.
That's so good. You are, like, that is one of your superpowers, gifts. Like, you are such a calming presence. I think even when Clint and I are with you in any capacity environment, we're like, oh, we need to calm down. We need to breathe a little. But there's something even that I see you bringing to that school that is a calming presence that is so desired in our world and so needed. Jill, could you speak briefly, I've had a few conversations about this, to people, how they support a family member struggling with mental health?
First of all, if you're struggling with a family member with mental health issues, it's really hard. I just want to acknowledge that can be really hard. If you are in close proximity to somebody that is struggling with depression, for example, you can experience what is known as secondary depression. Thank you. And so I would say, first of all, it's important to be aware of how are you being impacted by this other person in your life and their mental health issues. I had someone in close proximity to me many years ago, and I started noticing in our close relationship how I was being impacted by that. And I wasn't able to be present in my relationships because I was always thinking about this really difficult relationship. So I would say, know to check in with yourself first and look at what the dashboard of your soul is telling you. Your emotions are giving you information about how you're doing. Your body is giving you information about how you're doing. So we run at such a fast pace, so I would say slow down and notice and get curious about how you're being impacted by this relationship. And then in offering support, you all know this is a really thoughtful church. I've spoken with many of you. You guys are beautiful humans. I think you know this, but validating that other person's experience is really helpful. And then also getting really clear on your own boundaries. Boundaries aren't meant to be controlling. If they're done correctly, they're never controlling. They're actually really loving. They're loving with wisdom. So know that having healthy boundaries means you know what you can and can't hold with what that other person's dealing with. And then there's wonderful resources. There's a book called Loving Someone Who's Depressed. I think it's Laura Rosen, I believe is her name. And that's a really helpful book. But there's lots of resources depending on what the issue is that you're dealing with. And I'm happy to help if you guys need resources.
Great. Just jumping off of that question a little bit, this can go to anyone. This was one of our submitted questions. When you learn to pay attention to your emotions and what is going on in your internal world, I hear you talking about that, Jill. How do you make intentional choices and not just choices driven by those emotions? So when you know what's going on, how do you still make intentional choices?
Yeah, I can take that one. I think one of the things that I've learned is that to take a beat, right? Emotions are data, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the things I've learned and I've encouraged others is like, we don't move from emotions, right? We take that in with all the other information, all the other tools that we're receiving, and we analyze that with fact, with truth, right? We experience things. That's how we were designed. That's not a bad thing. But it's when we lead with those emotions that we sometimes go astray. And so what I would say is take your emotions in as another data point alongside truth, alongside the wisdom of a trusted friend or someone in your life who has a faith background as you do. And then take a beat to sit with the information that you've received. You're praying about it, you're internalizing it, you're digesting it, and then move from that place. When we move simply from emotions, that's when we're likely to sometimes make mistakes, right? Mm-hmm. Emotions are data points. They're not always truth.
That's great. All right, we're going to jump to talking a little bit about kids and students. So I know we all, like you have all parents up here, so we're coming from that perspective. But Demetrius, I'm going to start with you. We know the percentage of kids and teenagers that face mental health challenges continues to increase. Can you talk a little bit more in detail? I know this is a little what I asked about up front, but what you're noticing in students and what is helpful to students maybe that you're seeing?
Sure. I think that, one of the things that we see is a lot of kind of anxiety and this pressure to feel that you got to perform up to this standard. And oftentimes, as teenagers do, they rely on their friends and things like that. And, just thinking about when I was growing up, when we were growing up, connect from your friends. And like, if there was something that happened during the day, you had the night, you could pick up the phone and call them, or if needed to, or not. You had to wait and see what happened the next day. So taking the time to kind of process what happened, now you've got your device and you've got social media, and so you're always connected, and there's not the opportunity to kind of break away. And I think that we see a lot of times that there's just this level of anxiety and, anticipating, what's coming next, because we're not able to slow down and, kind of process and have discussions because, I've had situations where I've had to deal with student conflict And just by asking questions, like, have y'all even had a conversation about this? No, it's been all over text. And, you know, it's mind-blowing, but that's where we are right now. And so I think that being able to break away from, you know, the digital component and have more personal and individual connections is one of the things that I feel like is super important, to be able to process a lot of the things that are going on, and, you know, being able to process disappointment and not being as successful as you anticipate. So, you know, I think that's something that we're seeing a lot with students, and I'm sure it's not just with kids, it's with us as adults as well.
Yeah. Anybody have any practical, helpful tools for how we help our students disengage? Because you're right, like, it's hard for us as adults even to do that. And so when we're so driven by this device, any ways that you've seen that work or anything you've tried? I added that question in.
Take it away.
Take it away. Yep.
We had the conversation last week about, you know, it's interesting oftentimes as a school leader having conversations with parents, and they're like, well, can't you just do that? Like, yeah, we can take the phone, but if they've got it the rest of the day and into the night and overnight, we can't do much outside of that. So you see oftentimes, you know, in our position, our parents are asking us to be parents at school. And it's not a partnership all the time when it comes to providing that discipline and the support and the structure that our kids need.
That's really good. Okay, so maybe we can take this a little bit further. Demetrius or Danielle, what can we do as parents to support our students? Are there ways that we can, when you say we're not partnering, how can we partner maybe with the school? Can either one of you speak to that? Danielle, you want to start?
Sure. I want to acknowledge that, you know, I'm still learning. And I don't know that I ever want to completely know it all when it comes to my kids, because I feel like it keeps my heart soft for them, right? And if I feel like I know it all, then I won't go in with listening ears. I won't go into the conversation with them ready to be moved or changed by what they are experiencing. And so I think one of the things I'm learning from my kids is sometimes I just need to listen and not provide answers, even if I know the answer, right? Because sometimes they just need a place to get it off their chest, and their friends and school are not always the place where they can do that. So those are a couple things I would offer. The other thing that we started to do, like we have 4 children, and we've started to ask them, what do you need? And I'll acknowledge that when we first started asking them this, they were, 10, 11, 12. They don't know, right? Because everything is just swirling. They're not mature enough. They're not developed enough to even analyze what they need for themselves. But I've found over the years, as we just continue to ask that question, what do you need? How can I help you or support you in this moment? Do you need me to listen, or would you like advice? They've really honed in on going inside themselves to identify, I need, right, you to listen, you to contact my teacher. And so I think those are some of the best ways that we've learned. Like, again, we're not perfect. We don't have it all figured out. But as we've kept our hearts soft for our kids, we've determined that for us, we're going to start with the end in mind of where we want to be with our kids at the end of our lives, and its relationship with them, right? And so when I start at that place and work my way back, I'm constantly asking myself, how do I want to handle this situation now so that 10 years from now, I'm still in right relationship with my children? And so that also helps me from popping off, from going to D, right? Because our kids, it's life. They're experiencing it just like we will. And sometimes they test those parts of us. And I find myself just continually saying, I want relationship with my children. I want them to know I'm always here, that I've got their back, that I hear them, that I see them, and that my heart is always going to be postured to be with them, no matter what they're dealing with. And sometimes that means laying aside me being right. Sometimes that means not saying, I told you so, right? And all those things are really hard because we're human, and we do often know because we've experienced it. But I'll just remind you, because this is something my kids tell me all the time, is it's not the same, Mom. It's not the same today as when you were a kid. And I try to hold that their experiences are unique and they are different, and they're grappling with so much more today than we ever did. I was talking with someone yesterday, and like our biggest struggle was trying to figure out how to write "I love you" via beeper, like, and get it back. Like, that was really tough. They're not dealing with those things anymore. In terms of partnering with the school, I've resourced my kids so that they can advocate for themselves in the classroom. Mr. Ball will tell you.
Absolutely.
And so I've asked them, have you talked to your teacher about this first? Have you gone to student support? Those are some of our very first questions, because I think as a parent, we can get really defensive and really protective and be like, I'm on my way, I'm coming, right, to the school to deal with the teacher. But that doesn't help our kids establish the tools that they need to advocate for themselves, to honestly analyze their needs, to take accountability and responsibility for their actions in the situation. And so when it comes to partnering with the school, that's really how we've done it. We ask our kids the tough questions first, and then we just keep sending them back. And then when they can't resolve it, oh, mom's on the way.
Oh, I believe that.
Mom's on the way. But they have to put in the effort first, and then we're there to support those efforts alongside them.
Really good. Can you add to that?
Sure. I'll say that it is, from a parent perspective, my wife is amazing at asking questions about, what's going on with our kids. I've got to be better at that. I'm more of a listener, but it's important to have conversations with your kids. Just ask them what's going on. Don't be afraid to ask that second and third question to get more information about what's going on. And from the perspective of connecting with school, it's extremely important that students learn how to advocate for themselves. But you're a parent. If you're a parent, don't be afraid to reach out to the teacher, to the counselor, to the principal. It's part of our responsibility to help support. And as much as we want to be there and catch everything, we don't. We don't see anything. So many of our teachers are really good at developing relationships with students where they're able to say, something's not right now. Let me connect you with a counselor, or let me reach out to your parents, and those types of things. But we miss, as all of us do. But if there is a concern that you have, please don't hesitate, whether it's grades, whether it's social situations, all those types of things. We do our best to provide support, and don't be afraid, because it's part of our role to help support you as a family and our students.
That's great. So good. Jill, okay, here's the question. If I have younger kids, how do I know when my child's anxiety reaches a level that it needs help, and how do I find help?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I think the overarching concept is just how persistent and how pervasive is this? So if it's, it's just something new that's popped up, you're noticing they're a little anxious this week, obviously we're not going to panic over that. But if we've been noticing that there's some symptoms over time that are persisting, somatic symptoms, are they getting stomach aches right before exams, if that's a regular thing, or headaches, or they are showing other symptoms in their body right before they go to school, and that's been persistent over, a week or two, and you're noticing that's not changing. I would say pay attention to sudden shifts in their mood or sudden shifts in their habits at home. Are they suddenly not eating anymore, not eating well, not sleeping? You're noticing some of those signs. Or if they are not seeming to enjoy activities that they were before, that would be a red flag that they loved swimming and they're suddenly just not wanting to go or not wanting to be engaged in activities that used to bring them a lot of joy. That would be a concern. And it's really pervasive right now, anxiety is, that's a whole other subject as to why but we are raising an anxious generation. So know that this is being afraid and being sad at times is a part of being a human. So don't panic and get curious with your kids. If you can just show them the compassion, kindness, and curiosity of Jesus, be a safe space for them to talk to. Yeah.
That's great. All right, we have about 5 more minutes, so I want to do a couple more questions. But Danielle, I'm going to shift us a little bit. with what you're doing, I have a question specific to your work. You are passionate about equipping leaders of organizations to care for the mental health of their team members. Why is this important? And for leaders in the room, how can we take steps in that?
Yeah, this is a good question, and you're right. I'm incredibly passionate about this. We spend so much of our day in our jobs working. I feel it's the responsibility of us as leaders to be attentive to the needs of our team beyond the sales goal, the productivity goal, the metrics on the spreadsheet. It's incumbent upon us to ask, how are you doing? To notice when things are not okay, to provide the help and resources to the people on our team as they need it, because they're human beings. Right? They're more than warm bodies in our organizations. And so for me, it's a matter of seeing people as human beings first, and attending to them in that way. And so if you are in a leadership position in your job, it can look as simple as starting your weekly meeting with just a check-in so that human to human, we can interact. How was your weekend? What's your favorite holiday? Tell me about a time when. And that way, as you get to know them through these regular interactions, when something's off, you notice. Mm-hmm. You can say, hey, I notice you're not being your normal self. Is everything okay? Let me take that project off your plate. Give them the mental bandwidth and the space that they need to be human beings who are experiencing everyday life just as you are. I think oftentimes we see ourselves going and we have a work life and a personal life. And that's just not true. We are a whole, complete human being. And no matter how hard you try, you are taking your personal life into your work. You are bringing your work life into home. And so what could it look like for us as leaders to see the people on our team as whole human beings, not just as the people we see at work? And so those are some of the ways in which we can do it. If you're a team leader, I think it's building relationships with the people that you work alongside and asking some of those same questions. How are you? Let's grab lunch together today. I'd love to get to know you more. It's just these simple ways that we check in with our family and friends that we can bring into our workplace to make sure that we have healthy work environments as well. I always say healthy leaders build healthy teams, and it's so true, and they're less likely to do harm.
And just to add on to that, I didn't realize how important those types of lessons are, as an educator. We've been going through some really difficult times as our school district and all those types of things. But just being out and being present, like walking the halls, like you run into teachers and they just needed a vent and you were there. And it's amazing how much just being available, making yourself available to your people can make all the difference in the world. Your interaction with them is just going to have a trickle-down effect with their interactions with, in my case, with students and their peers and those types of things.
I love that because I think for us, we've been talking about in this series, yes, we want to experience greater and greater freedom in our mental health. We want to experience the peace that Jesus offers, that he says is a peace like no other, not a peace as this world gives. But as those of us in the room that follow Jesus, we have the ability, we have the privilege to see others wherever we are. Like you're seeing the teachers in the hallway and you're talking to us as leaders of organizations or as parents or wherever we are in the spaces we are, that we are a reflection of who Jesus is. And so for us to walk in the knowledge that not only do I battle, but people that I am interacting with every day, whether I can see it or not, or if I pay attention, I just might see it, are battling too. How do I continue to help them know that they are seen and loved and cared for? Really is an honor and a privilege that we get. I'm going to wrap up with one more question that was submitted, and I know we did not get to all of them, but how do I know, anyone can answer, how do I know when God might be stretching me in an area and there's some like growing and transformation happening versus I'm staying in a situation that is unhealthy for me? Both tend to feel similar mentally and emotionally. I just ended us on a big one. And 10 seconds left. Okay, let's answer that one in a minute and a half. Who wants to go? And we're all stumped. Whoever sent that question in, that's a good one.
That was a good one. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
You moved your microphone. They're giving it to you.
No. So it's,
you want me to read it again?
One more time.
Okay, how do I know when God might be stretching me in an area versus when I'm staying in a situation that is unhealthy for me?
Okay, so you got to lean into the Word. I think that is one of my biggest sources and needs to be my continuous go-to is, if I'm in a particular season, what is the Word, what is God's Word going to say? And oftentimes he'll direct you to the spot that you need to be. And whether, I need to learn this lesson or I can't see it yet, let me continue to show up and work on trying to figure it out, but not giving up and just putting your hope and trust in Jesus.
That's good.
I love that. And I think the thing, I'm sorry, I was just going to say, I think the thing that I would add, and this is just based off of my experience, what I've noticed is in the seasons where God is stretching me, it's uncomfortable, right? Because I'm learning something new. I'm practicing something I'm unfamiliar with. But in situations where it might be unhealthy for me, the symptoms look different because they are maybe harmful or toxic, right? Or they negatively impact me or the people around me. And I think God will never put us in a situation where we will be harmed. Him stretching us may be uncomfortable, but there's a difference between discomfort and actual harm. And so I think this is also where you need community around you, right? Community around you who can help you identify, hey, that's not you. What are you doing? You're not being your normal self. What's happening? Or I see you growing and that looks amazing. How can I support that, right? And so that would be the difference. Discomfort, uncomfortable, harm, toxicity, detrimental behaviors.
That's good.
Love both those answers. I would agree being in relationship is incredibly important, and also relationship with ourselves. So if you're not familiar with emotion words, I think they're such a valuable resource. You can go to feelingswheel.com just to get a list of the words, but being able to identify what emotion is coming up for me right now, because that's going to give you really helpful information to know what's the need underneath that emotion. And then in relationship with other people, you can ask, how are you experiencing me right now in this situation? If your spouse is noticing you're far more anxious or you're not yourself, you've been experiencing a really low mood, that would be really helpful information. So getting it all, I think, comes down to our relationship with God, our relationships with others, and our relationship with ourselves. How in tune are we to what is happening inside of us? And so just get curious about how this is impacting you.
That's great. Thank you all for today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Let me just close this time in prayer. I'm so thankful for all that we've heard, and maybe you just have some space today as we go into worship that you can just ask God, what is one thing you're speaking to me today? What is one thing that God might be pressing on your soul, or a thought that keeps coming back, or someone said something today and you're like, I so needed that. Sometimes when we hear the voice of God, it's like this dry and thirsty soul that it's all of a sudden like, oh my gosh, I feel the water. I feel the hydration. There's something all of a sudden that is reaching a place in my soul that hasn't been reached for a while. So let me just pray over you as you continue to process and hear what God might want you to hear. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for today. God, we're so grateful, and I just keep coming back to this is what community is for. There's such a wealth of expertise and knowledge and experience and story in this room, and we all have things that we can learn from others. That is what you've created us for. And so God, today, with everything we've heard, we pray that our hearts and souls would be tender to you, that God, we would be open and say, Father, speak to us, because as your children, we have the right, the God-given right to hear your voice, God. Bring water and hydration to where our souls are dry and hurting, Lord. In your name we pray. Amen.
We hope you enjoyed today, and thanks again for taking the time just to tune in. If you have any questions about Eastown or what it means to put your trust and faith in Jesus, we have many resources available on our website. If you have more questions than what you can find on the website, simply email us at info@eastown.church, and we would love to connect with you. We believe the church should be making a positive difference in your life and in the community in which we exist. And we can only do that through people's generosity. If that is something you would like to do, simply visit easttown.church/give. And again, thanks again for joining us. Tune in next week. Or hey, better yet, visit us in person. Have a great day.